I'm Emma Wilson, and let me just say, nothing could have prepared me for the moment I stood on that graduation stage, in my cap and gown, next to my sister Lily. It should have been a celebration, but for me, it felt like the end of a long, hard fight, one I had to wage quietly for years just to be seen. If you've ever had to hustle twice as hard for something that others just had handed to them, hit that like button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Because this is for you. I grew up in suburban Michigan, in what looked like a picture-perfect, middle-class home white picket fence, neat lawn, smiling family photos on the mantle. From the outside, we looked like a wholesome American dream, but behind that tidy exterior, things weren't so simple. My parents, Robert and Diana, had decent jobs. Dad worked as an accountant, and Mom was an English teacher at the local high school. We weren't rich, but we weren't struggling either. At least, we weren't supposed to be. Then there was Lily, my younger sister by 2 years. Or as my parents saw her, the golden child. She had bouncy blonde curls, top grades, charm for days basically, everything they could brag about. And somehow, despite being older, I always felt like I was 2 steps behind in their eyes. From as early as I can remember, I was the backup plan. I mean, picture Christmas morning. Lily's unwrapping the latest gadgets and dolls, and I'm there holding a pack of socks or some dollar store art supplies. Every time I asked why it was like that, Mom would say, "Your sister needs encouragement. She's got so much talent." And I learned early on how to swallow that sting. It didn't stop at Christmas. Lily's science fair. Both parents would take the whole day off, helping her build flashy displays. My art exhibition. I'd be lucky if Mom dropped by for 10 minutes on her lunch break. "Art's just a hobby," Dad would say with a shrug. "It's not going to get you anywhere." The only person who really saw me was my grandma Eleanor. Every summer, I'd go to her lake house. We'd sit on the porch for hours while I sketched the water, the trees, the breeze. She'd smile and say, "You see the world differently, Emma. Don't let anyone dim that light." She had this little library full of books on business leaders and entrepreneurs, people who started with nothing and built something amazing. I'd spend hours flipping through them. And somewhere in those quiet summers, a fire started in me. I didn't just want to be seen, I wanted to be undeniable. So by the time high school came around, I was laser-focused. I joined every business-related club, took AP Math and Econ, even surprised a few teachers with how naturally I took to it. When I won a regional business plan competition in 10th grade, my econ teacher called my parents to tell them I was gifted. You know what my mom said? "That's nice. Did you remember to help Lily with her history project, eh?" That moment kind of summed it all up. By junior year, I was working part-time at a coffee shop 20 hours a week while keeping a perfect 4, 0 GPA, not because I wanted extra cash for clothes or trips. No, I knew deep down I might have to pay my own way through college. Something told me not to rely on anyone else. Meanwhile, Lily joined the debate team, and my parents basically turned into her cheerleaders, trophies, dinner celebrations. Neat. I'd quietly clock out of my shift and walk home with an energy drink and flashcards. By senior year, Lily and I, thanks to her skipping a grade, ended up applying to college at the same time. We both set our sights on Westfield University. It had a great business program for me and political science for her. The day the acceptance letters came, I'll never forget it. I opened mine at dinner, hands literally shaking, and said, "I got in. Business program. Full acceptance." Dad looked up from his phone. "That's nice, Emma." 5 minutes later, Lily bursts through the door holding her own letter, screaming,
"I got into Westfield."
Suddenly, the whole mood shifted. Champagne popped. Dinner was forgotten. Mom was crying and hugging her. Dad was beaming. It was a whole production. And me, I just sat there, watching it unfold like I was invisible. But the real gut punch came 2 weeks later. We were having this rare family dinner. No phones. Just food and awkward small talk when Dad said, "We need to discuss college planning." He turned to Lily. "We've been saving for your education since you were born. Tuition at Westfield's steep, but don't worry, we'll cover everything. You focus on school." Lily was glowing, beaming with pride. I waited, thinking my turn was coming next. It didn't. So I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, "What about me?" There was this long, awful silence. Dad looked uncomfortable. Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. Then Dad finally said, "Emma, we only had enough for one of you." And Lily's always shown more academic promise. We think the return on investment is clearer. Then Mom patted my hand and said, "You've always been more independent. You'll figure something out. Maybe community college." And then, the words I'll never forget. She deserved it. But you didn't. I couldn't speak. I just sat there, realizing everything I'd feared was true. That all these years of trying, of showing up, of working twice as hard, it didn't matter. I had never been enough for them. That night, I cried harder than I ever had before. 17 years of being the afterthought had finally broken something in me. But the next morning, with swollen eyes and shaky hands, I stood in the kitchen and asked them one more time, "How could you save for Lily and not for me?" Mom sipped her coffee. We had to be practical. But I have better grades. I pushed. I've worked 2 years while acing everything. Dad slammed the paper shut. "Lily's always been focused. You've been distracted with art, part-time jobs, and those business ideas. They're risky. Lily has a clear career path." That's when I knew I was on my own. And so, I did the only thing that made sense. I drove 2 hours to Grandma Eleanor's. I told her everything. She held my hand and said, "Emma, your parents are wrong. Deeply, heartbreakingly wrong. But you have something they can't see. Determination that doesn't break." She didn't have money. But what she gave me, belief. And that belief lit something inside me again. "Go to Westfield," she said. "No matter what. Their limits don't have to be yours." And that night I made a vow to myself. I'd go, I'd fund it myself, and I'd rise so high, they'd have to see me. The very next day, I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. I started researching every possible scholarship, grant, work-study program, and loan I could find. I filled out more applications than I can count, some during lunch breaks at the coffee shop, some in bed at 2 a.m. with eyes barely open. My high school guidance counselor, Mrs. Chin, stayed after hours to help me sort through paperwork and deadlines. "You're one of the most determined students I've ever met," she told me one afternoon as we submitted my 25th scholarship application. "You're going to make it, Emma." Eventually, some good news trickled in. A few scholarships here and there, $500, $1, euro 0, but nowhere near enough to cover the full cost of Westfield, with a mix of federal aid, a couple of private loans, one of them co-signed by Grandma Eleanor, and a whole lot of hope. I finally scraped together just enough to get through my first year. Next came the housing scramble. Lily was set up in a premium dorm, with our parents covering everything laptop, bedding, room decor, even a mini fridge. Me, I found a Craigslist listing for a cramped off-campus apartment with 3 strangers. 45 minutes from school. The walls were thin, the pipes creaked, and the landlord was sketchy, but it was mine, sort of. I took a job at a campus-adjacent coffee shop and grabbed a weekend shift at a used bookstore nearby. Between those 2 jobs, I figured I could keep the lights on and ramen in the cabinet barely. Move-in day was like watching 2 totally different movies on the same screen. Our parents drove Lily in the family SUV, packed with everything she could possibly need. They helped her unpack, hung up photos, met her roommate's parents, took selfies in front of the dorm. Me, I followed in my beat-up Honda that rattled whenever I braked. I'd packed my stuff into leftover grocery boxes and 2 hand-me-down suitcases with 1 broken zipper. No one checked if my car would make the drive. No one offered to help me move. As they peeled off toward Lily's dorm, I kept driving, alone, until I reached my rundown apartment. Mom called out from the SUV window, "Good luck, Emma. Hope this works out for you. Not we're proud of you. Not you got this. Just doubt." But doubt wasn't going to stop me. That first night in my apartment, sitting on a lumpy mattress I'd dragged up 2 flights of stairs by myself, I stared at the cracked ceiling and honestly thought, can I do this? 30 hours of work every week, a full course load, barely enough money to eat. How long before I burn out? Then my phone buzzed. It was Grandma Eleanor. "Remember, my brave girl, diamonds are only made under pressure. You're already shining." And with that, I dried my eyes, opened a blank notebook, and built out a schedule every hour accounted for. Classes, work, study time, 5 hours of sleep if I was lucky, rinse and repeat. There was no room for error, and definitely no time for parties. The financial aid office quickly became my second home. Ms. Winters, the assistant director, heard about my situation and pulled me aside. "Emma," she said, I've seen students in your shoes before. It's not easy, but it's possible. Just promise me something. If you ever feel like you're drowning, come talk to me. I nodded, and honestly, that promise would save me later. Just before classes began, I got a call from Mrs. Chen back home. She had convinced the high school's business department to pool together a 1D Euro scholarship for me. It's not much, she said, but we wanted you to know we believe in you. That moment, that was the final push I needed. I stepped onto Westfield's campus not as the forgotten daughter, but as a fighter with purpose. Freshman year hit me like a train. Most students were adjusting to campus life, making friends, figuring out how to use their meal plan. I was waking up at 5 a.m. for a quick study session, clocking into the coffee shop by 6, rushing to class by 9, working a second job on weekends, and doing homework wherever I could squeeze it in on the bus. During lunch breaks, even while waiting in line at the laundromat, I recorded lectures to listen to while I cleaned espresso machines. I did readings during bathroom breaks. Sleep, optional. Social life, non-existent. But I was getting through it. And then, something wild happened. I started thriving. All the real-life budgeting, multitasking, and time crunching gave me an unexpected edge in class. While some students struggled with basic accounting, I was applying those concepts daily, juggling my own finances like a small business. In business ethics, I crushed a case study on resource allocation. After class, Professor Bennett stopped me. Mrs. Wilson, she said, your insight on family business dynamics and efficiency under constraint is exceptional. Where did you learn to think like that? I just smiled and shrugged. Life. That moment lit something up in me. Maybe I wasn't just surviving, I was actually good at this. But let's not sugarcoat it. There were still days I barely made it home before collapsing. Nights where dinner was saltines and tea. And midterms nearly broke me. That's when Zoe stepped in. She was one of my roommates, a poli-sci major with a big heart and zero patience for injustice. She noticed I was living on protein bars and caffeine. And one night, when I dragged myself home past midnight, she was waiting with a plate of pasta and a cup of tea. You can't keep this up, she said. You'll crash. When I explained my situation, she was stunned and then angry. That's beyond unfair. From now on, you've got a college family. Me. From that point on, Zoe became my unofficial sister. She proofread my papers, cooked extra portions for me, and shielded me from noisy roommates when I needed to study. I helped her with econ in return. And before long, we were a team. She once said, the family you build for yourself. That's the one that counts. And wow, she was right. Then came sophomore year. Just when I thought I had a system, disaster struck. The coffee shop cut hours seasonal downsizing. Suddenly, I was making 40% less, and rent was due in 2 weeks. Panic set in. I scheduled an emergency meeting with Missy Winters. She looked over my grades, my story, and said, you qualify for an emergency grant, and actually, Professor Bennett recommended you for a research assistant position. It pays better than the cafe and would look great on your resume. I took it in a heartbeat. The job? Helping with a study on how small businesses survive economic downturns. And just like that, another door opened. One day, while we were going over data, Professor Bennett leaned over and asked, have you ever thought about entrepreneurship? Your ideas around innovation under constraint are really advanced. That one question planted a seed that would grow into something much bigger than I imagined. That conversation with Professor Bennett stuck with me. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Maybe, just maybe, I could actually build something real. Not just survive school, but create something. Make it mine. So I started working nights not at a coffee shop, but on my laptop, using what I'd learned in marketing, business strategy, and digital media. I put together a basic website, my idea. A small virtual assistant service targeting local businesses, especially the ones I'd researched during my assistant job. It started simple. Just me, doing administrative tasks, social media, and scheduling for a few local clients. But as the work came in and referrals started to trickle, I realized I was onto something. By the start of junior year, I had enough steady income to quit the bookstore job. Between my new business, the research assistant gig, and some clever budgeting, I was finally financially stable, sort of. More importantly, I wasn't just getting by anymore, I was building something of my own. And that changed how I saw myself. In business strategy class, I started speaking up more, offering insights from my real-world experience. My professors noticed, my classmates did too. Some even started asking me for advice on their projects. The girl who used to be invisible was becoming a respected voice in the department. Meanwhile, things with Lily were polite. We kept our distance, mostly occasional texts. The occasional wave across campus, but we didn't really talky. And our parents, still fully invested in Lily's world. They called her every week, me holidays, if that. I remember one Thanksgiving break when I couldn't afford to fly home. Mom texted, "We miss you at dinner, but we understand you're busy with your projects." 3 dots. That was it. That was all I got. But I didn't let it slow me down. By the end of junior year, I'd taken my small side hustle and turned it into a digital marketing agency. I brought on 2 fellow students to help, hired legally, paid them fairly, and even gave them flexible hours to work around their classes. The business supported me and others, which felt incredible. Then came a huge break. Professor Bennett nominated me for the university's Entrepreneurial Excellence Scholarship. I remember shaking when I got the email that I'd won. It covered my entire senior year's tuition. "You earned this," she told me. "Your story is what entrepreneurship is all about." And for the first time since freshman year, I breathed. No more scrambling to cover tuition. No more juggling job applications and scholarship deadlines. For once, I could just focus on thriving. But as my success grew, something strange happened. Lily started to falter. Turns out, coasting on talent and charm only gets you so far. Her senior thesis was falling apart. One night in November, I opened the door to find her on my porch red-eyed, holding her laptop and a mountain of papers. "I am failing," she whispered. "My professor says my research is all wrong, and if I don't fix it in 3 weeks, I might not graduate." Part of me wanted to say, "Now you know how it feels." But another part of me, maybe the stronger part, said, "Come in. Let's look at it." And that moment, it changed everything. Over the next few weeks, we spent hours together rebuilding her project. I taught her research techniques, helped her rewrite her framework, and coached her through the panic. And for the first time, she listened. One night, she looked at me and asked, "How do you do it all? The business, school, jobs, I can't even manage a paper." So I told her the truth about the jobs. The skipped meals, the sleepless nights, the grinding hustle for years. She was stunned. "Mom and Dad always said you were doing fine," she said quietly. "I didn't know." "Yeah," I replied. Fine is relative. That conversation shifted something between us. She started turning down our parents' over-the-top gifts, insisting she could manage more on her own. Our weekly study sessions became deeper real. She saw me in a way she never had before. Around the same time, something else happened. Dean Rodriguez from the business school called me into her office. "Emma," she said, "your story is the definition of resilience and innovation. We'd like you to be the student speaker at graduation." My heart stopped. Me, the girl they didn't even think was worth college. But there was more. She handed me a brochure. The National Collegiate Business Innovation Competition. First prize, 50 € in funding and national exposure. Your agency's niche approach to rural small businesses. It's brilliant, she said. You have a real shot. For weeks, I worked late into the night fine-tuning my pitch, rehearsing, perfecting every detail, and it paid off. I made it through every round. And then, I won, standing on stage with that oversized check. I felt something I couldn't quite explain, maybe pride, maybe relief, maybe something deeper, validation. Not from my parents, but from myself. The university paper ran a feature. Business Innovation magazine reached out for an interview. Grandma Eleanor cried when I called. I always knew. "Darling," she said, "now the world knows too." And my parents, not one word. 2 weeks before graduation, they showed up to town to help Lily get ready, rented a big house, planned a fancy dinner party. I got a generic invite that made it clear I wasn't really expected to come. "We figured you'd be busy with work," Mom said casually when I asked. That dismissal, it barely stung anymore. I had my own plans. The night before graduation, Grandma Eleanor arrived at my apartment. She handed me a small box. Inside, a custom graduation stole with words embroidered in elegant script. "Diamonds are made under pressure. Wear it with pride," she said. "You've earned every thread." The next morning, I woke early. This was it. Graduation day. I put on the dress I'd saved up for her, slid on my cap, and wrapped Grandma's stole around my shoulders. Then I took one long look in the mirror. I wasn't the girl begging for their approval anymore. I was the woman who had built her own path with scars and strength to prove it. Zoe drove me to campus. "No more bus rides for you," she joked. Boss ladies got places to be. As we arrived, families flooded the grounds. Cameras clicked. Bouquets waved. Hugs everywhere. I spotted Lily in the crowd waving, smiling. "Can you believe we made it?" she said, adjusting my tassel. We both did, I said, in our own ways. Right before the ceremony began, Dean Rodriguez found me. "After the degrees, you'll speak first," she said. "And don't be surprised if we add a little extra." She winked, and I had no idea what was coming. The ceremony began with the usual fanfare music, speeches, polite clapping, but my heart was racing the entire time. As graduates filed across the stage, the dean of each school read names, and proud families snapped photos. When my name was called, I stepped up feeling the weight of Grandma Eleanor's stole on my shoulders, and something heavier still in my chest. I shook hands, accepted my diploma, and caught a familiar sound in the crowd. Grandma Eleanor's proud whistle cutting through the air like an anthem. Lily, walking back to her seat, passed me with a thumbs up and whispered, "You've got this." Then came the moment. President Harlow stepped to the microphone. "Before we close today's ceremony," he said, "we'd like to honor a few exceptional students. First, please welcome Emma Wilson from the School of Business to deliver the student address." As I walked toward the podium, I saw my parents for the first time all day. They looked confused, Mom squinting, Dad leaning forward. They had no idea what was coming. I took a deep breath and began. "4 years ago," I said, "I stepped onto this campus with nothing but 2 secondhand suitcases and a lot of determination. No safety net, no promises, just a belief that I could make something of myself, even when the people closest to me didn't believe the same. You could hear a pin drop. I worked 30 hours a week while carrying a full course load. I lived off instant noodles and flashcards. I built a business from scratch and still managed to make the dean's list every single semester." I paused. Let the words settle. But the most important thing I gained here wasn't in a textbook. It was the understanding that success isn't about where you start. It's about refusing to accept the limits others place on you. The crowd erupted in applause. I glanced at my parents. Dad had gone pale. Mom's lips pressed in a tight line. But it wasn't over yet. President Harlow returned to the podium with a proud smile. "Thank you, Mrs. Wilson, for those powerful words, but your story doesn't end there." He turned to the audience. "I'm proud to announce that Emma Wilson has been selected as this year's valedictorian for the School of Business, graduating with a perfect 4.0 GPA while running a 6-figure marketing agency." Gasps, murmurs, a wave of applause. But then he continued, "She is also the winner of the National Collegiate Business Innovation Competition, earning top honors nationwide and bringing prestige to our university. And what's more," he paused, making sure everyone was listening, "she accomplished all of this while fully self-financing her education, working multiple jobs, building a business, and receiving no financial support from her family." The crowd froze. Then came a ripple of whispers, some stunned, some admiring. I watched my parents, Mom's eyes wide, Dad's face frozen. Their shame was visible. It had taken 4 years and a packed auditorium to finally make them see what they chose not to see all along. President Harlow wrapped it up. "In recognition of her resilience, we are proud to announce the creation of the Emma Wilson Resilience Scholarship, awarded annually to students who demonstrate extraordinary determination in the face of hardship." The applause that followed was thunderous. A standing ovation. My classmates were clapping, professors, strangers. Even Lily stood with tears on her cheeks, clapping like her life depended on it. When I returned to my seat, she grabbed my hand and whispered, "You were right, and they were so wrong." After the ceremony, families swarmed the lawn. Photos, hugs, flowers everywhere. I found my parents standing stiffly near Grandma Eleanor, the usual confidence in their posture gone. "Wow," Dad said with a forced chuckle. "Quite the surprise." "Huh, you've been holding out on us." I stared at him. "Calm." "Dad, I've just always been this person. You just weren't paying attention." Before they could respond, Lily stepped forward and, God bless her, spoke loud enough for people nearby to hear. Isn't it amazing how Emma did all this without the kind of support I got? Imagine what she could have done if she'd had the same advantages. Mom flinched. Uncle Jack, standing nearby, raised an eyebrow. Guess you two backed the wrong horse. The public accountability was brutal but long overdue. Perhaps we can talk more at the house, Dad mumbled, desperate to retreat from the spotlight. Actually, I said, I have a celebration planned with my team. My professors and the people who supported me the whole way. They get my time today. Grandma Eleanor beamed beside me. I'm going with her, she announced. I want to meet the people who saw in Emma what her own parents couldn't. Lily stepped forward. Me too. As we walked away, I felt the weight fall off my shoulders. Not because I needed revenge, but because I no longer needed them. Later at the reception, surrounded by professors, mentors, classmates, and Zoe who brought cupcakes. Of course, I introduced Grandma and Lily to everyone. The support I had built for myself showed in every handshake, every proud word, every photograph taken in front of the business school banner. Jennifer Alexander from the consulting firm came over, smiling. We're excited to have you on board. Most grads are still polishing resumes. You've already built an empire. Lily blinked. Wait, you're working for Alexander Global. Yep, I said, grinning. Starts next month. She nodded, processing it all. You're amazing. Emma, that night, we got a message from Mom. Family dinner at 6. Hope you can join. We want to celebrate both our girls. Grandma scoffed. Bit late for that. Lily looked torn. We'll decide later, I said. Let's just enjoy this moment first. Eventually, we did go, and when we walked into that house, the entire vibe shifted. Conversation stopped. Relatives turned. Then came the congratulations, the genuine kind. Mom came out from the kitchen with a nervous smile. Emma, you came. We were just about to serve dinner. Dad joined her. Our successful daughters, he boomed, like he'd been cheering for me all along. Emma, why didn't you tell us about the consulting job? Before I could say anything, Uncle Jack spoke up again. Maybe because you never asked. Boom! The room went quiet. We always supported our daughters, Dad said defensively. Financially? Aunt Susan asked. Because the president made it clear who paid for college. We had limited resources, Mom said, her voice trembling. Emma's always been so independent. Independent by necessity. Grandma Eleanor cut in. Let's not pretend this was some noble parenting strategy. The rest of dinner was awkward but clarifying. Relatives asked about my business, my scholarship, my future, and for once, the spotlight wasn't just on Lily. Later, as we were saying our goodbyes, Dad pulled me aside. Your mother and I were thinking, maybe we could help with your apartment deposit in the city. I smiled politely. Thanks, I said, but I'm good. My starting salary is $90,000. Prue Bonnu says, my housing is already secured. His face fell. You've certainly proven yourself capable, he muttered. Yes, I said. I have, and I didn't need their validation anymore. A few days later, I moved into my new apartment. My business continued to grow under the student team I'd trained. The magazine article came out with a full-page photo of me, Lily, and Grandma Eleanor. Weeks turned to months. Eventually, my parents invited me to lunch, and for the first time they listened. They apologized. Not perfectly, not with eloquence, but honestly, and I let the healing begin not for them, but for me. The final piece came months later. Grandma handed me a silver bracelet. My grandmother gave it to me when I graduated, she said. She told me it was a reminder that our worth isn't defined by others, it's built from within. I wear it every day. And on the 1-year anniversary of my graduation, I launched the First Gen Achievement Fund, a scholarship for students who fight like I did, who dream big, even when no one cheers for them. Because sometimes, the ones who believe in you the least are the ones who push you to rise the highest. So, tell me, have you ever been underestimated? How did you rise? Share your story in the comments. And hey, don't forget to like and subscribe, because you never know. Maybe your story is just beginning. Thanks for being part of mine.